Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming. This is the Walking Dead what if scenario, and today we're going to talk about what if Rick dies for Negan. That's not going to be such a simple question to answer because we got a lot of different variables that we're going to talk about, how the story could play out, other characters that could be affected, so on and so forth. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank all of you guys for being here on a Sunday morning. I know there's a lot of stuff you could be out doing. Some people are working and listening in. Some people are... Hopefully you're not listening in from church, but other areas, I'm sure that you guys are part of the Walking Dead. This is our Walking Dead Day. We want to talk a little bit about Season 9, some things that could go down, but also just to remind you, at 8 o'clock tonight, we will be talking about Fear. The mid-season finale is going to be awesome. I am so excited for that, but I'm going to table that discussion because there's so many good clues that are out there. So you are going to want to be here at 8 o'clock tonight because I'm going to start to unveil a couple things that I've read, a couple things that people have brought to my attention, and a few other things out there, and I think it's going to be a real plot twist that's going down. So I want to say what's up to Pete D with a super chat coming out there. Thank you so much, Pete D. Appreciate you being here, and shout out to all the people that are making time for this. So we're going to talk about it. And Pete, I know it's going to hurt if Rick leaves the show before Tara, but that might be what we're up against because there's just a lot of rumors out there that this could be a kind of a reset for The Walking Dead. And that means there's going to be some new faces, some new people that are going to have to change their roles a little bit. But how do we get to that point? And I guess with Negan more than likely being a mainstay on the show, Daryl being there for a long time, we know Andrew Lincoln is leaving. So we're going to have to find a way to either accept Negan. That's hard for me, but I'm going to ask for potential storylines of what you think could go down to get Negan back in the favorable graces of all the Walking Dead fans because I'm just one that I hold that grudge against Negan for a long time. So I thought, is there a way possibly that Rick might sacrifice himself for the greater good of society? Several people, here's why I say this. Because a lot of people have messaged me after some of the streams we've done. Some very angry people I have to bring up. Like, you're an idiot, you're a moron, what are you talking about? Rick is the show won't go on without Rick. And it's like, I'm like, whoa, hold on, Cowboy Bob, give me a second here. Let me explain myself. I mean, there's some venom that's out there anytime I talk about the show going on without Rick. So the show did start around Rick. And I know many of you are going to say that, well, the show's about Rick. And then some people come out and they say, no, the show's not about Rick. The show's about zombies and walkers, which I can't say zombies, can I? You get it. Is the show about walkers? I'm going to give you a whole different wrinkle. I don't think the show's about walkers at all. And I don't think it's about Rick. I think the show is about how humanity cannot get along when there's a crisis. I think that is the underlying picture and the underlying theme of The Walking Dead. It might have started out from the eyes of Rick, and then it's gradually went from one enemy. The biggest problems in The Walking Dead are always created by other people. That's the thing. So I want to take you back just a little bit before we get into answering the bigger question of today's show. How strong would the humans be right now if they all just got along with each other? Think about this. All the enemies, all the bad people, all the people you got. And Rick's group is not a bunch of saints. But then you've got the animosity that happened and the jealousy and all the things that went down with Shane. You got all the evil and the darkness that went on in Terminus. You've got how the governor wanted to take control and build his own community. You've got how other groups out there are trying to live, and all along the way, they can't get along with each other. So, now, if everyone did get along, it would kind of be a boring show, right? Because what are you going to do every single week? Well, you got 1,000 people. You got Herschel, and you got the governor, and you got Shane, and you got Andrea and Dale, and you got all these people that probably lived because they're much stronger and they're watching each other's back. And all they do is they get up and say, hey, what are you doing? I'm going to go out and kill a few walkers. Okay, all right, come back. but then they have a society. So it would make for an easier survival path, but it wouldn't make for a good television show. So as much as when characters leave, we don't like that they leave, it has to happen for the television show. All right, and we are back. There's a brief interruption, and I am going to, you know what, in random things on Tuesday, I'm actually going to give some negative publicity. I'm back. If you guys can hear me loud and clear, give me a quick 999. It is white noise. The one thing about the playback though is those lapses don't show up. All right, looks like everybody is back and we're on board. The worst is when you get into one of those like really serious thoughts and you got a whole bunch of questions out there. So I am actually going to completely destroy a internet provider and a cable providing service on Tuesday. So stay tuned for this. You won't want to miss random things on Tuesday. I'm usually not into negative advertising, but I have to go through just a completely nightmarish experience. And it will be included on that. I'm not going to interrupt our Walking Dead video, although it might be interrupted today. But we'll get it, hopefully, full scale coming up this week. All right, let me get back to The Walking Dead. Once again, I apologize if there's an interruption during this episode or later on. Just hold tight. It will pop back up because these interruptions are usually about 10, 15 seconds. Okay, let's get back to The Walking Dead. So, if all of these people were strong, they would have bases. There would be kind of what Negan set up. So let me ask this question: of all the communities we've seen so far, which community do you think is the closest to getting it right? Which group? Because it seems like one has something, then one gets a little better, and one gets a little better. The prison, the governor, Alexandria, the kingdom, the saviors. So Ultra Group says the kingdom. The hilltop, Tommy says Alexandria. We're not at the Commonwealth yet, Goldfinger. Just the ones that we've seen on the show. So all of us are kind of in awe of different communities. But if we put them all together, maybe that is the Commonwealth. Maybe that is people that, and I don't know the history, but at some point, a lot of what's destroyed this group has been the personal battles, the pride, the quest for, the struggle for leadership. And especially in the comic, that was the thing, right? It was always about, and through the point where I've read in the comic, 100 and something episodes, it's about the group struggling and Rick jumping in and taking control. And then sometimes Rick says he doesn't want to be the leader, but he's forced into the leadership. So that's played out somewhat on television, but maybe not as strong as in the comic. Because I do think there's other strong characters on the television show. So somewhere between, I think there's 3 major storylines that could affect Rick's exiting the show and Negan's acceptance back into the show. So the overarching theme here is Carl's wish for peace. Carl wanted Rick to enjoy those moments, to see things, to enjoy life, and really not look over your shoulder again. So is it possible that for those out there that were just spewing the venom and I hate Killshot because he says the show is going to go on without Rick? I like Rick, but I'm just saying the show is going to go on without Rick. Could it possibly be that the gift that Rick gets is actually seeing the world differently than everybody else? Now hold on, let me explain this for a minute because it's going to get pretty in depth here. We always talk about Glenn got the death he deserves. Abraham got the kind of death he deserves because, he was going out, gave the peace sign to Sasha. Sasha left the show. Sasha went out on her own terms. Sasha got the death she deserved, right? It's Carl got bit, but shot himself. A lot of people say Carl didn't get the death he deserved. However, Carl's death supposedly had meaning, and that was to change Rick. So, if Rick were to die, the question I have all of you right now, what would be Rick's epic death? If you said, let's say he's not leaving. I know leaving is still a possibility. Maybe leaving, coming back, a quest to find something, all of those things possibly. But let's say Rick dies in season 9. What would be the proper way to go in all of your minds? That's what I want to see. Kenny Miller says the group needs someone as ruthless as Negan to survive against the Whispers. And I may not disagree with you, Kenny. The challenge of that is going to be getting people to accept Negan in that role. But that's probably what should happen. I'll get back to that. Star Guitar Goddess says, dies saving Judith. Steph says, goes out guns a-blazing. Casey says, sacrificing his life for someone weaker. Kind of the theme of what we're talking about today. Maybe sacrificing his life for Negan. But I'm going to give a 2-part scenario to that. Wilson says, accidental shooting. Tanya says, fighting for the beliefs to save the family. So a lot of different possibilities. Now, to some, there's never going to be any closure to Rick dying. So I know it's a tough question to answer. I'm asking you to kind of agree with something that maybe you don't agree with. But we still have to find some silver lining in it. So let's say Rick is to leave and an accidental shooting, sacrifice for the group, says Emmy. So this is why I said this would kind of be a 3-part thing. So the major story, I think, is Carl's wish for peace with everybody. A secondary story and a secondary plot that's happening simultaneous to this is Maggie, Daryl, and Jesus' quest for revenge. And then the third part of that, which could be a byproduct of all of that, is the fact, what if Rick takes the bullet for Negan? What if he's the one that is not going to let them storm Alexandria and take Negan out there? What if he's the one that wants the governor back, wants Shane back, wants to have a second chance at all the people that were dead, of building a community or building something that survives, that endures? And he sees that if, no matter how bad Negan is, if we take one more life, it never stops. Could that be Rick's destiny? Could that be the what's Rick is trying to embark on the show? That what he leaves the television show with? Because I can't think of a very satisfying death for Rick. I can't think of, I know, and some of you struggled with it. A few people said die saving Judith, but still, you still lose Rick. So Gina says, I would hate Negan even more then. Maybe, Gina, but here's what I think is going to be the ultimate quest of the writers. The follow-up question, and hopefully you'll answer that question. What could give Negan purpose? What could give Negan relevance? What could give Negan freedom? What could give Negan something to fight for? Negan had a connection with Carl. Rick spared him. If Rick saved him, would you... I tend to think people would be more receptive to Negan going out and fighting when a bigger enemy actually does arise, which would be the Whisperers. I mean, Ultra Groove, Negan saving Judith, I don't know, would have the same impact with the viewers that Rick sacrificing for Negan would. Carl started showing that sacrifice, and if Rick would continue that sacrifice, because now, if Andrew Lincoln wasn't leaving the show, I don't know that we'd ever be having this conversation. But because he is leaving the show, and we know that 100%, then I'm always looking for ways to sort of satisfy one and carry over to another one and then bridge the arc to something else. So Alani says Carl's ghost will continue to haunt Negan. It would, and Rick showing Negan mercy and compassion. And the other thing that I'm going to say, other than one move, Negan is kind of a badass. Now, look, Rick fans aren't going to like this, and you guys have been watching streams for a long time. You know that I'm a much bigger Rick fan than I'm a Negan fan. But I do have to be honest. Negan has kicked Rick's ass several times. And anytime Rick ever had a chance, except for the last time, Negan always got the upper hand. Even when Rick set Lucille on fire, Negan found a way to get away. Negan kicks Rick's ass. He kicks Simon's ass. He kicks everybody. I mean, I still don't like him. But someone brought it up a little bit ago. This is going to be a war beyond all other wars. When you get to the Whispers, and even in this situation, other than the way Rick finally got Negan to lose, is he had to trick him. He had to pull the Jedi mind trick and make him think that he was, going to give him a hug, and he was getting kind of emotional and sentimental. I agree. Tanya, there's no doubt. And of all the things that I have the hardest time erasing from my memory with Negan is the Glenn thing. Never be over the Glenn thing. But how do you erase a little bit of that? Those of you that are big comic fans, and I've not gotten to this point in the comics, what is it that the Whisperers do that is so diabolical that makes them like just the worst enemy? What is the hatred? What is it that the Whisperers are going to do? I mean, they skin people, right? They decapitate people. I'm going to let a couple of the comments catch up here. Dakota says they cut up a lot of heads. So, you guys know I've sort of built up the society. So I ask you a couple questions, sort of get you in that mode. So we've seen all these people survive, and now we've got an enemy out there that is unlike any other enemy. So they make Negan beating people with a baseball bat look tame, right? So you're going to need that refined Negan. They should have never had Negan taunt Glenn the way he did. That part, I'll always disagree with the writing. Because I do think if they would have played it just a little differently with the writers, then this transition to us liking Negan would be very seamless. It'd be very like, okay, no problem. Maybe Rick sacrificed himself. Now I'm on board. Now I'm Team Negan. But because of that, because of who he was, and there's always a propensity to backslide and to be that person again, you do need a little bit of evil Negan. The thing is, if Negan was beating the Whisperers down and dancing with it, we'd be high-fiving. We'd be like, yeah, he just kicked that Whisperer's ass. But when it's Glenn and Abraham, it's totally different. Like Spencer, nobody cared. Actually, the Spencer death I think it was a way to start liking Negan again. Because the reason Negan killed Spencer is because Spencer was a snake. He's basically like, have you talked, why don't you handle Rick yourself? Because he didn't have the guts. So I think people actually started giving Negan some points. And I think they did kind of mellow him out along the way. There's two, maybe three. So I'll ask for a couple of your opinions here. After the sick, twisted, psychotic beating of Glenn for no reason at all, and the dancing around in the moonlight enjoying it, how many times did the writers try to scale it back with Negan? Think about this. The Spencer death, that didn't bother me. The Simon death, actually Negan got some points with that. The reflection where he's on the walkie-talkie with Rick, and he's like, damn, that boy was the future. That, right? All of those things showed a side of Negan that I think the writers were trying to reel it back in a hurry. Holding Judith, all of those things. Rapey Davy? Absolutely. So if we take I'll say it a million times, writers, you screwed up with this one. You didn't have to do it that way. Someone could have shot Glenn. I mean, I know it needed to be his comic book death, but you didn't need to do it that way. Or you could eeny, meeny, miny, mode Glenn and just did that as his random target, okay? But the killing two people there, totally overboard, uncalled for. So once they got into that mistake, it was damage control. It was human Negan. And there were parts. Even the iron to me wasn't the worst thing he's ever done. I mean, I didn't like the iron, but I thought the iron was a lot different than the beatdown with the bats. And to be honest, that doctor deserved to be thrown into the fire. That doctor needed to be gone. So, some of the actions were questionable, but not as extreme as the first one. So Kenny Miller says, yes, Negan, I agree. He had to start out with a statement. I just think the statement of Abraham would have been enough, especially if you plan on making the viewers accept his role in the future. Because that's my only reservation at this point. And I'm still saying that the Whispers are going to have to do something to make me hate them worse than I hate Negan. Because we don't yet. We haven't seen it. So, quick question for everybody. And I chose this picture intentionally. The stained glass that's up there. Is that a hidden clue? Is that foreshadowing of the Whispers? Is that possibly the design? I know Alpha has the Infinity Belt. Is that possibly a way that they communicate? Could they be shining lights off these stained glass? I don't know. I just wanted to kind of get into the clues. I just thought it was very interesting. They chose this tree, and they have the stained glass in the middle of nowhere. Are these communication devices? Instead of talking, maybe they're shining light off of it, seeing reflections. Just thought I would throw that out there. I don't know if it's been discussed. But if it hasn't, I want to discuss it. Exactly. Who put the stained glass up there? And I think it was funny because we just see it, and we saw the reflection on Rick's face, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It just happens to be on a couple trees, and your eyes don't even go to it. The first thing that most of you were looking at when I put this picture up is Negan and Rick. So we've gotten so used to seeing it, the fact that it was up there, I think, and the fact that it was so visible shining on Rick's face, I think it's going to be kind of like a Morse code thing. Shine on a different angle, it reflects, some other people can see it, all of those things. I'm sure there's some neat things you can do with that. It is an open field, but, the Whispers, we saw a lot of walkers down that hill. I just wouldn't be surprised, get out in season 9 and this comes up again and, maybe you just see something. You see them used for something. Exactly, Hippo. Kind of like smoke signals. No, not confirmed, Don. Not at all. We haven't confirmed it, but we are, we're definitely going to discuss it. So, now, I don't think all the sexual assault and stuff is going to be on television, not to the level of the comics, but there are some things. What can the Whisperers do? All right, just give me a random thought. Keep it clean, guys, but just something semi-diabolical that doesn't get too extreme. What could the Whisperers do if they get out in season 9 to make you hate them worse than Negan? Give me a couple thoughts. Because if you hate them worse than Negan, you're probably going to be looking around for any ally that you can find. I certainly think the decapitations are going to happen. Maggie's head on a pike, I definitely could see that going down. Bad things to Maggie, no doubt. A decapitation of Rick, certainly. Rick dying via whispers. I do feel like that'll be more along the lines of Maggie. Just something is telling me that Rick will be a part of the Negan storyline. Because even if they kill Rick, see, here's the problem with the bigger story. Okay? If the Whisperers kill Rick, there is zero chance that Maggie and Daryl are going to let Negan live. Zero. It's not going to happen. In fact, the first thing they would do is they say, Maggie'd say, I don't care. What would Daryl say? If Rick dies via Whispers and Negan is still locked up, Daryl's going to say, I don't give a damn about no damn Whispers. I'm still killing that son of a bitch. That's exactly what Daryl would say. And he would shoot Negan. And he would have a easier path to kill Negan because Rick would not be standing in the way. So Rick is going to have to play into the storyline of Negan's saving grace. It has to happen that way. Because they're just not going to let him out of jail. It's just not going to happen. He's done too many things. It's going to have to be acceptance, and then partnership, and then rampage. Those are the 3 stages. Yeah. Right, Dolores? If Rick dies, Negan is gone. Gone, gone, gone. No doubt about it. So there's very little stuff that can happen to make us put Negan, to be on the side of Negan. And the 2 things that I think could happen along the way, I could see Jadis unlocking the cell and Negan staying there and saying I could have escaped and starting to build points gradually. But I just see Rick's sacrifice for Negan as being the thing that forces us more as viewers. One, Rick's probably going to say it. Like, we got to stop this. We got to stop this killing. We can't kill any more people. No matter what they've done, we can't do it. So I do think that there's going to be a verbal dialogue of Rick actually saying something like that, not to the people on the show, but so we, as viewers, start to feel that and start to gravitate toward it. And then I think the words have to be followed with an action of a sacrifice, and that would propel Negan back to... And then if you want to put another layer, the cherry on top, then let Negan go out there and start taking out vengeance on whatever threat that there is. Now, I don't know how all that will play out. It's just, but the more I think about it, that's really the way I'm going to need it to play out. And as a writer, that's the challenge. Because even if I asked most of you that hated Negan and said, okay, Judith gets captured and Negan comes back with a little baby in his hand, is that going to be enough? I don't think that's going to win over the crowd. I think there's a few people who are going to say, yes, he has a softer side. But we've already brought out a lot of Negan's softer side. We've seen it the whole last half of last season. So another good point here. So Dolores says, even in the comic, Negan had to leave the area to get real redemption. Maggie followed him, finally had her say found him, finally truly repentant, and that's when it was the end of the Negan arc. So I think the television is going to be a big challenge. Now, if Maggie could, I'll throw a third kind of option out there. Maggie having the opportunity to kill Negan and then not doing it for whatever reason, change of heart, change of goals for the society, any of those things I do think would play into it as well. Because I think we'll say, hey, look, if Maggie forgives him for killing Glenn, then we need to. I mean, there's going to be a part of that. Not everybody will. If Rick says he's a good dude and is going to vouch for him, then we will. So all those are going to be happening, but as viewers, we're not that easy to impress. We're easy to lose, but we're not easy to impress. And the fact that you do have a benefit, and I say this casually, the benefit of Andrew Lincoln leaving the show. Not that I want him to leave the show, but you do have kind of a wild card that you can play that and use it however you want to get Negan acceptance, to change Daryl's character as well. If Daryl's going to have to step up and be more visual on the show and making the money he's going to make, Daryl's going to be a good part of the story. But with potentially Lauren leaving, with Andrew Lincoln leaving, some things can shift in a hurry. Emotions can shift fast. Joey Price says, Kills, do you think they're giving us the swerve with Rick, making us think one thing and doing another? As far as Andrew leaving the show, no, I don't, Joey. As far as are there options for Rick? Could Rick die? Yes. Could Rick live and leave? Yes. I mean, there's different variables to what could happen with Rick. I mean, nobody said that he dies. They said he's leaving the show. A third and a much less likely variable, could someone else play the role of Rick? Yes. All three of those things could potentially happen. We don't know. So Kay says, just imagine Daryl killing Rick. I would think there's zero possibility. Daryl, people need Daryl. The fans need Daryl. There's no way that you start forgiving Negan and then Daryl accidentally or intentionally killing Rick. No chance that's going to happen. That would do more harm to the viewers than anything else I think they could possibly do. I think that would do more harm than anything they've ever done on The Walking Dead. Not even as an accident. Because I think that there's been too many accidents, there's too many things that have already taken place. Here's the challenge of the writers. The challenge of the writers, how can you do things to make people give a damn about it, that hasn't been done already, to make them passionate about it, to make them care about Rick's team and hate other people? Because there's only so many things you can do on a zombie show. You can't have everybody play nice and rebuild and be happily ever after. Not for a whole season. You can do it for a little bit, but there has to be the threat, whether the threat is human or the threat is Walker. And really it boils down to this is not a last minute decision. This is not something that Andrew Lincoln went to Scott Gimple and said, hey, you know what? Kill me off this season. This is something that had to have been known, I would say, for at least 2 years. So planning up to it is a big deal. Chandler's probably a little bit more impromptu. But I'm sure that Rick had already, being professional, he's probably already went to them and said, look, this is a point where I'm at. I'm going to give you 2 more years, but you got to figure this out. Which could also be a reason. Carl's death we might have known about Rick's death, or the writers might have known about Rick's death before Carl's death, and instead of letting Chandler lead the show, they figured Rick's going to lose everything. And we're going to see a little bit of that tonight. We might see a very desperate mom who said, I've already lost everything. Put it all out on the line. But I think Rick's bigger purpose is to save society, or at least to think that he's saving society. Because if there's bigger enemies, if there's the Whisperers, if there's the Commonwealth, then it won't be a long-term solution. What's truly, truly interesting after 8 seasons, and look, we know The Walking Dead sometimes has its repetition. I mean, not everything is new to us. We love the show. We love the characters. We're waiting to be entertained. So it can't be completely different every season. There's going to be some things. But you also need, I do think that a shock factor, either good or bad, can change the narrative. It can change how things happen. You're never going to get another Andrew Lincoln. Ever, ever, ever. Great actor, perfect for the role. Everything about him from start to finish. Love the story, but I also love other stories. So you can't replace him. I mean, they could try. They could get another actor, but no matter who they get, would never be better. So a time skip and bringing someone else in, maybe, then maybe it's easier. I've said this in some other streams as well. That piece of it, if they were to find a storyline of making it easy for him to leave and then come back in a year or two as a different character, or maybe this Andrew Lincoln comes back, I would love that. I would just love holding on to the hope that maybe Rick's coming back. And with that, we are 45 minutes into this, and wow, good group, good turnout. Appreciate the thoughts, appreciate the concepts. I want to say thank you. This is just a new cast. What If? This is the second one that we've done. We did one about 3 weeks ago. We're going to continue these every Sunday morning at noon, just different scenarios. They won't always be realistic scenarios. They're going to be things that we just delve into, talk about as we ramp up the season. We're going to start within probably about 2 weeks. We're going to start doing what we did last year, where we go through every episode of The Walking Dead Season 9 and give our predictions. We had a ton of fun with that last year when we did Season 8. There were some things that were spot on. There were some things we were way, way off on. But as a picture surfaces here, or rumor surfaces, then what we like to do is say, hey, this is what's going to happen in Episode 1. It's going to happen in Episode 2. And they get very creative, and then we just kind of layer it on. Sometimes we got to backtrack a little bit and change the dynamic, but that'll probably happen not this week, but the next week. We'll get into that full scale. Got a ton of other stuff going on in the channel as well. Tonight at 8 o'clock, we will do our Fear Countdown. I'm going to give you some hidden clues in tonight's Fear Countdown. I know normally we just talk about it, and we talk about this and that, but there are some things that I think have been overlooked in previous episodes. We're going to talk about that tonight at 8 o'clock. And of course, at 10:20, we are going to do our Fear Reaction. stay tuned for both of those, and also especially the fear reaction, because I got a feeling there's going to be some twisted stuff that's going to go down tonight with a little bit of a cliffhanger. So that's what you can look forward to. And then tomorrow night we will do our recap and reactions as well. Tuesday night we'll do random things, and then we will have bold predictions on Wednesday of next week. And then there will be no streams Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I will be away, and then we will figure out the following Sunday because there's no Walking Dead. So we're probably going to kick it back up with what if and some scenarios. If you guys have some what if scenarios you'd like to talk about, you can send those over to me at kilzhot, or if you're a member of the Walking Dead 999 Army page on fan page on Facebook, say that really fast, you can post them on there, and then the moderators can compile those and send those over to me as well. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Get out and enjoy a little bit of the weather if it's nice weather in your area, and I will see everyone here at 8 o'clock tonight. Give me a quick 999 in chat right now so I can do some shout-outs on the way out the door. If you're watching the playback, this is the end of the video. This is closing credits. If you're still here, I'm just going to do a couple minutes worth of shout-outs. So thank you. I want to say a very special thanks to everybody that made time for this Sunday morning. So starting out, we'll get with Tommy V, Michelle M, Dolores Bird, Joko Wiley, the Cat Nat, Beth Burgett, Hippo in the House, James Kelly, thanks for being here, Howling Wolf, Star Guitar, Goddess, B Loves 999, and The Walking Dead, Rublo's Channel, Dakota Page, Deborah Mooney, Wilson. Who else we got? We got Bryn Gilligan, Lakeisha Faison. Hey, glad you found us. You were able to jump in here. Bumblebee Brown, Tegan, thank you so much. The moderators, Emmy, Steph, Kels, Tommy, always great. Appreciate everything that you guys do. Jeep, T-Ray, Melinda Kettler, Tammy Heitzman, Billy Henley. Thank you, Billy Henley. Fluff Salisbury. Thanks, Fluff. Miss True. Walani, Joey Price. Joey Price, every time I see you, I can never get over that Negan picture that you posted. Julia Drums, thank you. And also shout out to Baby Hippo, a.k.a. Draven. So, and absolutely, happy birthday to Draven. Little Tommy as well. We got the second generation of the 999 Army that's starting to form. So we got the Army, and then we got the siblings. So we got everybody else. It's the offspring. Sam B. Ultra Groove, thank you. You have a great day too. Stacy, appreciate you being here, Stacy. Thank you so much. Tanya Dockstader says, I've said it before and I will say it again. We have the best live stream host, mods, and 999 family. Thank you, Tanya. I don't care what nobody else says. We got the best stream possible. We kill those some bitches. There you go. Daryl would agree with you. Eric C. What's up, Eric C.? Gina Crockett. Thank you, Gina. All right, just a couple more minutes for some shout-outs, and there's always a couple I miss. If I ever miss you in a shout-out, just keep in mind there's a ton of them. Sometimes I don't get everybody. Or you're late typing it. Or I forget. But you can always leave it in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, everybody, we're going to wind this thing down. I will see you all at 8 p.m. for Fear the Walking Dead mid-season countdown. It's going to be a lot of fun. Peace.